All right, episode 19, final pod of the year.
Oh, is it really? The final
year.
pod of 2023.
What a year.
It's been an up and down year.
It really has.
There's been some
Back up for Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I know. What a crazy
Up, down, up.
finally time.
What a crazy tail end story for the end of the year that Bitcoin is up.
Leading us into 2024.
Amazing.
Come on.
Another
We're back
bull
where
run.
we started.
Everything cycles, huh? So
Yes.
before we get into anything else, like hot topic, there's a movie on Netflix that just came out. It's called Leave the World Behind. It's produced by the Obamas. So
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know they were into movie producing.
Wow.
I don't think they are.
Yeah, I don't think they are, but it's very
I
interesting.
think
that,
they're into propaganda, just to be honest with you.
Interesting you
Put it
say
out
that.
there.
So I think this is based on a book, a very old book. If you've ever heard of the TV show called Mr. Robot, I think it's the same people that made that show also made this movie. And it's about a cyber attack, an imminent cyber attack in the
Okay.
U.S. And so that's like the basic idea. A lot of like, premier actors. And so
Oh, so it's fiction.
it's fiction, yeah.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what people are talking about right now is this whole idea of predictive programming, and I hadn't heard of it. So I looked it up, and so I kind of just want to explain what it is. If you guys have heard of it, you can interrupt me.
Yeah.
But it's this idea of like fictional media, and there's this higher elite level, like the cabal, if you've heard of them, that are controlling what is being shown in the media,
Right.
and they're using that to program us to be, aware of certain situations that are upcoming, so that when they do, come up, we don't think of it's like it's just out of nowhere. We're kind of like
Right.
accustomed to it happening. And so some of the examples
It's called
are
mainstream media.
yeah. And so some of the like Simpsons, if you've ever heard of like all the stuff they predict usually on their show.
Oh yeah, I love watching
Like,
those
like
things.
Trump was going to be president, like
Yep.
probably one of the most famous ones. Like
Yep.
Black Mirror has done a bunch with like Netflix and like the strike they were going on, and then
Yep.
Netflix, they had like the SAG after. And then this one was
Well,
crazy.
it's the question: does life imitate art? Does art imitate life?
Oh, interesting.
Right. And I don't know if you guys have heard of this one, but like before 9/11, there was this show, The X-Files. Have you ever heard of X-Files? They did
I've never seen it, but I heard.
Yeah. They did a sister show called The Lone Gunman. And 6 months before 9/11, they had an episode which like had that same exact premise as the first show. And so it's kind of like, is it confirmation bias after the
Sure,
fact?
sure.
But now everybody's talking about this. Why did the Obamas do this? You had this whole show or this whole movie about the cyber attack that's coming. And then I think a week after the reports of China having a cyber attack on the U.S., infiltrating a lot of our utilities and infrastructure.
That's right.
Just happened, and they're
Major
talking about it
attack,
right now.
yes.
And so, yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. And so I was curious what you guys how much you guys know about this, like psyops, like
I mean, yeah. I mean, I love a good psyop,
Right.
but I honestly haven't heard too much about the movie. I was just randomly scrolling through X, my favorite social media platform,
Shout out to
last
X.
night, and I saw a little bit about Teslas, self-driving Teslas being a part of the collision course of humanity and different things like that. I didn't really understand it. I didn't have enough time to investigate it. It was like, okay, just another attack on Tesla.
So that part of the movie was basically there was some issue with, they did this cyber attack. They were able to take over the full self-driving cars, and they used that to jam up the freeways. Because I think that the way that they described it is like a 3-pronged attack. The first step is to cut communications and your ability to isolate you. That's like the first phase. And then the second phase was, I forgot what the second phase was, but then it would eventually lead to a civil war.
Right.
And so it was just causing chaos, disinformation, and then it would lead to like a civil war.
So in the movie, who's the cyber attack from? Is this from a sentient AI, or is it an actual government or parliamentary party?
The idea is that it's from a government or
Okay.
it's called the cabal, like a higher group
Yes.
that's controlling the world. And so
Who
this is
are
my
eternally in power, but they just use the pawns of the different parties. Okay.
Across kind of geopolitical lines.
yeah
Or,
yeah across
Oh wow,
yeah, yeah.
wow. Okay.
like globally
So
the elite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know anything about that.
Right.
But what I will say is, I absolutely believe there is incredible influence in terms of broadcast media in controlling narrative. Right. I was watching. Kim had never seen House of Cards back in the day. Used to watch House of Cards, and it's this kind of political drama, right? And season 1, there is this kind of moment in which they show kind of the strategy about picking certain narratives, right? And so one of them was trying to go against kind of the labor unions because they were trying to push another agenda, and they were like trying to think about the terminology that everybody can consistently say, and so they just seeded it. They seeded it into the media with one of kind of their moles, right? And they called it disorganized chaos, right? That was like the term, and then all of a sudden you see that everybody just keeps repeating the same thing, and it became like the thing that influenced people's hearts and minds to then maybe vote one way or swing one way, right? I absolutely believe that's what's happening.
Right.
100%.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, yeah, of course, whatever you put in front of people, right? Propaganda works. And whatever
Yes.
you're going to present to people, there is a specific narrative that you want people to believe. You've got to work overtime to push that narrative, right? And I think, you know, looking at this movie, is it out?
Yeah, it's out on Netflix. Number one on Netflix immediately, right when it dropped.
Oh,
Number one on
I
Netflix.
gotta watch
All right, going to watch
Crazy.
that.
I heard it's not. I don't know how good it is, but Netflix is promoting it as number one, so I don't know how good.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't need to be that good, but maybe just from the interest sake of the storyline. Now, where I'm interested in is if the Obamas are behind this,
Right.
And they're talking about this group of people that really control the narrative. Is there an element to that story that actually is they've seen behind the veil?
So I'll say
For
this:
sure.
the director was consulting with them directly, and he said he was going to go over the top. And the thing that scared him is, this is what he says: is the Obamas would say, "Well, this is how it would really happen from our experience," and
No
that
way.
was scary to him.
That was scarier
That-
than-
to him, like for what he could even think of. It was scary that they had something to draw from to, like, you know, rein it back in, which is, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know how much truth there is. You know, obviously there's, you know, who knows, but wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is definitely. I mean, well, look, I mean, you can shoot me down for this, but, you know, it is very obvious, probably now more than ever with the current administration, that our sitting president is not calling the shots.
Oh, for sure.
When
I
they
think
can't,
most people know that.
when they can't fumble through an announcement or
Definitely.
or keep attention span or no directions, you are not directing, you know, policy. You are not directing anything when you can't even know where to simply go and talk and all that kind of stuff. So, I think what we're seeing is that there is definitely a group of people that are constructing the narrative, and he's a spokesperson.
For sure.
But what's the deepest layer that's been consistent through government for generations and decades, and knowing that this is the biggest business in the world, you know, and then they've got their allies, you know, with BlackRock and all these other things like that. Yeah, there definitely is the mass population that maybe the conversations we're having really aren't even the important conversations.
right.
I think that's why actually, you know, and the political drama side of it is a bit annoying and can be divisive. But I do think that there is validity to people being civically engaged, right?
Yes.
Because to what you said is so true. Government is actually the biggest business on the planet.
Yep.
Like if you think about like some of the best companies in the world, their budgets are hundreds of millions. The government has trillions.
Yeah,
Like it's just like, what are
trillions.
we talking about? This is the biggest business
Right.
the world has ever seen.
Yeah, when it's easy for the president just to write another $200 million,
Yeah.
you know, loan to Ukraine, and that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
nothing, and it's like, hey, wait, that's $200 million.
Oh, it's nothing. They've done billions.
They're just
right?
like, oh, well, I mean, we're already $3 trillion in debt, you know, and let's just add it to that. I think really what we're looking at here is there's certainly some, you know, I would say crazy stuff that's happening in the background, for sure. But I definitely think we need to be politically engaged. I think we need to, I mean, the narratives that you see from, you know, Donald Trump or Vivek about, hey, we need to shrink the government.
Oh yeah.
We need to drain the swamp. We need to, what the illusion is, hey, they've seen behind the veil. There are operators that need to be taken out.
Okay, so this is actually a good point, because going off of this idea that there are definitely people behind the veil that are trying to control narratives, if you're going to be civically engaged, actually the best way to do it, wisdom would say, don't get caught up in narratives. Don't get caught up in personality politics. Don't
Yes.
get caught up in the drama of it.
Yes.
Just think about it pragmatically. What's discernment? Discernment is just thinking about it from first principles. Okay, so understand what you just said. Small government. Okay, do you believe that? Why is it important? And asking yourself, why do we believe in small government? Oh,
Right.
that's right, because we're for freedom.
Yep.
Right. And the larger the government gets, that's actually infringing on
More
our freedom.
controls,
And so you're thinking about this from a pragmatic standpoint, because sometimes you can get caught up in the emotion of things
Yeah.
and not be making decisions based on actually things that actually align to your principles.
Yeah, and I think the other talking point that's coming around this is there's these movies, like this movie's coming out. There's another Civil War movie that's kind of same thing. The U.S. is in a civil war, and it's this idea of like kind of fear mongering, and it's like right before the elections, and it turns you back towards the government, right? Like a lot of this is done in history, like to do this, right? And so
yeah, I think it's done in history, but I think that's a really good point, Vance, too, is that the smoke screen is the drama.
Yes.
The smoke screen is the mean tweeting. The smoke screen is get caught up in the personality stuff. Like, I think even the trial right now that Donald Trump is going through, it's a smoke screen for distraction.
Totally.
And that's what they keep saying is, hey, the guys, this is just a smoke screen. How is this even legal? How is this even legal to time it so well that it's like we're trying to knock a candidate out of the race? You know what I mean? And I think that there is so many smoke screens. If we get caught up in the drama of things, we're going to really miss the core value of principles, policies, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
But I think you're right. I mean, I'm going to watch that tonight.
Oh yeah. I'm curious what you think about it. And if you want, I'll send you all the kind of talking points, like the conspiracy theories.
You know I want those.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm all about that.
It'll be a long process.
So you started looking into it. Talk to us about what's your experience like. Obviously, things like fear can come in. And how do you process?
Yeah, I think the first thing that...
Because you're a faith person as well.
Yeah, and I think the first thing that came to my mind is like there's this underlying kind of foundational truth where it's like, Satan's kind of operating through a lot of this, right? And like the fear and the kind of division that he's trying to like coerce is through this kind of misinformation. And so like even as I was looking into this, it was kind of like, is this real? Or is this just, some way to get fear into me and to make me think about like, kind of poor decisions and like change how I'm thinking about the world and stuff. And so...
people, I don't even think do that though.
Oh,
I think people just take
consume
it.
it.
Just consume.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the mass populace just consume.
Yeah, it's like...
but maybe it is a great point to ask a deeper question of yourself when you watch this kind of stuff. Go, okay, well, am I getting caught up in the fleeting surface levels of life? I think when you read the Bible, the Bible makes it really clear. Do not worry about what you're going to eat today, okay, or eat tomorrow, because God has provided for the birds of the air. And it seems very poetic, but it's actually true. It's not saying, hey, don't worry about what you're going to eat, because, we need to worry about eat, but you're getting so concerned with the temporary. Think about the eternal impact. And I think that is actually one of the most founding, secure moments for my life is when I realized that a lot of the things we can get caught up with is actually quite temporal.
Yes.
It's 4 years of presidency and it's different things like that. And I've seen people get heartbroken over a football game.
For sure. That's definitely true. Yeah.
Arun.
Arun's pointing to himself.
But, that's no knock on you, Arun, but that's very low emotional level of society, that if a fluctuation of a football game, a sporting game, can really wreck your emotions, man, you're not equipped for the bigger things of life. And I think that is part of American society, is being dumbed down to being loyalist to a sporting team. And that plays into the tribalism of political agendas. And people, it's that saying, vote blue no matter who. That's half of the problem that we have in California is this tribalism to saying, well, that's just my team. And it's almost like you back your team when they're underdogs even. So even when they're making bad policies and bad calls, you defend them because they're your team. The same way as your team makes a bad play, you're still defending your team. When at the end of the day, in the political system, it shouldn't be team. We're Team Jesus. We're Team Kingdom. That should actually reign supreme in the way we vote, rather than going, I'm Republican or I'm Democrat.
So good.
Yeah, and even like to that point, I think about like even when like I'm trying to understand like why do NFTs work, and it's all around this idea of like tribalism, and I think it kind of ties into identity, and people don't really know who they are, and so when they can find a common interest with people, that becomes their identity, and I think that's why like sports can break your heart, and that's like you're so tied to it emotionally because that becomes
why do you
identity.
think we are so team oriented? Why do you think we're so why because we identify with, I mean, we've talked about this before, your Team Android with Team Apple, iOS, we just like to grab our team and we run with it. Why do you think we do that?
Well, that's a good question. I would make a distinction though between tribe and community. Right? And so I do think that we're hungry for community if we believe that God, the creator, is in community himself. Right? I think the distinction between a tribe is something that is even more deeply entrenched in something I can't control or change. For example, you could have tribalism based on lines of race. right? Or based on lines of ethnicity, like literally tribes of villages, because that's your place of origin, your place of birth. It's we look like one another color wise, right? That is actually the true definition of a tribe, and that's why I think tribalism is toxic, because when you start creating lines around things I can't control, right, then I can never break into your tribe.
Right.
I'm not welcome to your community if we start drawing lines around those type of things in America, for example, right? But I do think there's a magnet towards that sometimes, because the deeper thing I think is community. People want to belong, right? And so we kind of default to like, well, I belong in my tribe, but I think that is actually dangerous, because then that becomes clique, not community.
Right, and I guess my point to that is this where the power of brand actually comes in. That if you can, when you're starting a company or you're developing a product, is the brand the most powerful component of that?
Right.
Because if you win people to that tribe or that community or around that brand,
Yes.
they're gonna become loyalists.
Exactly.
No matter what you do, even if the product isn't as good as another product, but you've already got the brand buy-in.
Right. Oh, 100%.
Do you know how you guys filter it, like make that distinction between when you're creating a brand and like growing a community instead of growing like, cliques? Or as a business or somebody that's growing a brand, does it really matter to you?
Actually, you had a conversation with somebody recently that thought they were building a community, but they were actually building cliques.
That's exactly that is the conversation that really came down to when they started their thing. That their whole focus, I heard the word community. I'm like, hey, you got to be careful with just building community, because if you do build a community, if you offend that community and the community isn't around you, the community will go with the people who are offended. And so the community doesn't always center around the one person that you want it to center
Correct.
around, because a community can be healthy or a community can be toxic, but it all happens. It's like the strawberry, connected. So I think really what we want to do is we want to have people connected, I think, on an individual basis rather than a mob basis.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's how I think the power of brand works. If on an individual you have a great product, so I love that brand because I know that brand delivers, rather than, well, Jay-Z reps that brand, so I'm with him, so whatever he's into, I'm into.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. And I think the other insight I got from that conversation that you shared with me is the thing with when something becomes a clique is because it became insular.
Yeah.
It became about catering to that person instead of calling that person higher. So some of the most successful brands I feel like are in the world are aspirational.
Yes, for
Right.
sure.
Right. Like you love Nike because you're like, I just feel like I'm fitter wearing Nike. You love Apple because it's like, oh man, like I just feel more sophisticated. I feel smarter because I have an Apple device, right? It makes me smarter. I feel stupider with an Android. Just like,
Right.
That sounds pretty clicky. I don't know.
Sounds very clicky.
That sounds very clicky.
But yeah, it's this idea that can the brand actually help you aspire to be even greater than you are? I feel like people are attracted to that.
I think people are attracted to that, and it's well positioned marketing. We're talking about Nike. Remember, we were at the game in New Orleans, we're at the Pelicans games, and we came out of the Pelicans game, and we just saw the Pelicans win. It was an amazing win. Zion, we just crushed it, and that was spectacular. Then we literally walk outside, and on the parking garage across the way was this gigantic poster of Zion with his arms spread, and all it had was a tick. And he just had his big muscular arms out, holding a basketball. And you're like, that's awesome.
Nike.
They didn't need to do it. We just watched Zion, but they capitalized on the feelings and the emotions and walked down like, that's my dude. I don't even support the Pelicans, but I was like, I wanted to salute him. I don't know why, but it just got the emotion and the connection, and it was really great brand power to go, man, they're really going after the feeling, the connection. And I think they've tapped into something humanistic.
Oh yeah.
That a great brand makes you feel.
Yes.
That's what a brand, if it's going to be effective, it makes you feel, and you got to feel that thing. So I think this is where we're getting, full circle back to the PSYOP. I feel like it triggers emotions within you. And we can't get away from being human and having emotions, but can we not get caught up in the drama? And it's so easy to get caught up in the drama of a political, propaganda or whatever, because we are emotional. But how do we feel the right things and not get led by our wrong emotions?
That is so good.
That's where the enemy lies, to grab your emotions. So now he's got locked up in fear. The government's in control, and you start, building a shack out in the middle of nowhere and becoming ineffective for the kingdom. Well, hang on. The enemy wins if he changes most of your conversation off kingdom and onto political.
Oh, for sure. And what I am kind of learning through this conversation too, that I'm reminded of, is that at the end of the day, people are moved by story, right? And so to that point is like, you can use story to produce feelings of fear, but on the flip side, you can tell really great stories to produce feelings of inspiration and more kind of positive, productive feelings, right? And so I found this to be true because I felt like I was in a season building Overflow where, you start the company based on vision because it's all you got. You don't got any spreadsheets. You don't got any traction. You have to raise money on vision, essentially. And so you start in that premise, but then you get a little bit more sophisticated. You get some customers. You get to that first $1 million in revenue. And then all of a sudden, you're more mechanical because you understand how hard that was to get to $1 million. You understand like, okay, I got to think about margins. I got to think about unit economics. I got to think about customer acquisition cost and average value per customer. And you're going through the mechanics of a business, which is all important. It's all good. But I realized this past year that, people didn't originally invest into me because of those mechanics. People didn't originally join the company because of those mechanics. People actually originally joined, partnered, invested because of the story.
Sure.
Right? And so when I started going back to the roots of telling stories, I started finding myself getting re-excited about what we were building. And through that energy being transferred on potential customers wanting to sign up faster.
Yeah.
Right? And so I came up with this whole presentation. It's called Meet Alejandro, which is this whole idea of talking about the future of our roadmap, our product roadmap, but not from like a position of here's the product roadmap matrix and here's a spreadsheet and it's going to be delivered by this date and these are the features and these are the benefits. No, it's just a story of Alejandro's journey throughout the church. And how the underlying theme about every single transaction, whether it's buying a coffee or buying church merch or giving within the church, is all connected through the thread of an Overflow application, right? And I realized that, okay, now I'm able to connect all these like amazing things we want to do into one storyline that people can digest, and then people feel something with that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it could be as boring as like a fintech company all the way to a PSYOP Netflix thing, but at the end of the day, people are moved by story.
Oh, that's so powerful. And I think it's a lot of it is like the why, right? Like why you're doing it. Because when you're going through this and you're building and like you're going through your seasons and like the ups and downs, you can kind of get caught up in it and then you forget the why. And it's kind of like that excitement kind of, fades away. And I've talked to this like with a lot of my friends that kind of are going through startups and stuff. And then that kind of idea of like burnout happens. And it's like, I don't really know, like every day feels like a grind. But but if you know the why and like why you're going about it, like do you have like techniques or stuff that you guys have done in the past to like kind of help you remind yourself like what's the why as you're going through stuff?
Yeah, we call it connecting the dots. We're always trying to connect the dots to the why. You know what I mean? Even in the early days when we were setting up the church, why are we here at 5 a.m.? Because we're connecting the dots with when that person comes to the altar. There was things that we did in setting the atmosphere and mastering what was a temporary environment and making it feel like it was permanently live and all those kinds of things. And I think that the skill of a leader is in how they connect the dots constantly for everybody. How does even the janitor feel like they're getting this product to market? You know what I mean? And if you can do that, well, guess what? The janitor's going to clean better than any janitor you can have because they feel like they're part of the mission. And so your job is to keep connecting what we do to the mission, how menial or how major the task is. You got to connect the dots. That is another way of saying this is our why.
Yes.
That's really good.
You served in production team. Did you feel like those dots were being connected?
Oh,
for
yeah,
you
100%.
at Vive, for example?
Yeah,
Even before production, weren't you on the A7?
Oh yeah, V7X.
V7X.
Biggest scam ever. Biggest scam ever. It was modeled after
you got a
P90X.
hoodie.
I did get probably the cleanest hoodie.
It's a
honestly,
clean
it's still one of my
hoodie. It's a
favorite.
nice hoodie.
It's one of my favorite hoodies.
Yeah.
But for those that know, it was called V7X because the idea was you serve 7 times. and then you recruit people to come in after you. And
Right.
but then
The
you just
70
stuck.
the 70th time
yeah,
later.
the 70th time later, we were just, it
still on
was
it.
just us.
Bro, that recruiting problem was on you.
That's true. Actually, shout out to Sean, who was also there, major recruiter.
He
Didn't recruit
hasn't
anybody.
served since.
But I will say
Sean
that,
gave up.
I will say though, my time on production, the one thing that remained true was no matter what, it was like a team effort. It didn't matter
Yeah.
if your role started later. Everybody showed up at 5 a.m. Everybody showed up at 5 a.m. And if there was a place where you could step in, that was the mission. It was, okay, now I can help. I'm still here. Maybe my team, the setup happens later, but now I can go help another
Was
team.
there somebody that set the tone there, like with that?
Yeah.
That set that culture.
I think it
that
I think
connected those dots.
It all kind of funnels down from like leadership all the way down, and but like with like Danielle and Andrew,
Yeah.
they kind of set the tone, and they lead by example. They're always the first ones there. They're always the last ones out. And I think that kind of leadership, it like you can just see it with every level down. The leaders that they produce, it starts to like show into them.
See, that's the point that I wanted to make is like what we've said actually in Vive since the beginning is that you have to actually hemorrhage culture if you want people to even sweat it, like 3-4 levels down, right? And so I just was curious because it sounded like even like 2, 3, 4 levels down, it was still so strong.
Yeah.
Because every single step of the way,
Yeah.
people were carrying that culture, connecting those dots.
Yeah, and I think they're carrying that mission that you bring in, and I think a lot of it stems from it wasn't here. This is what you need to do, and then there's a disconnect between you and that. I think it kind of goes with what we talked about last time. That deeper connection, it's there, right? And that deeper
Good.
connection then goes down to another deeper connection between them and then the next level down. And you guys have mastered that.
But
in terms
you've
of that.
seen sometimes it's not every area that we've had that, right? There's sometimes it's like it's diluted in this area, and you've had to go multiple levels.
Yep.
to-
Yeah.
How do you correct it?
I think there are times where you definitely have to step beyond a few levels to make sure the connection's making it.
Yes.
That means there's a broken connection.
Yes.
That means that maybe somebody is receiving it, but they're not passing it on. And so
Spoken like a good electrician.
we've got a broken circuit, guys. But it's like about I want to assess where on the connection is the break, because I could see it in the people. Are they feeling like loose or disconnected, or it's not being repeated? Language isn't being repeated. I mean, let's bring it. Even the propaganda talk that we started with. We're going to feed people language, and so people
Yes.
talk about it.
Absolutely.
That happens in the church as well.
for sure.
I know I can use it for good, or I can use it for evil. I could easily say, and I've done this with the team before. I can say on Sunday, hey, this is fresh teaching.
Yes. Yes.
And if I say that several times, everyone's report from Sunday is like, wow, that was fresh teaching.
100%.
So for me, I'm not going to say any of that crap because I know churches that do that stuff, right? And however, there are handles that I want culturally
That's right.
through the church. So I'll frame it the same way every time. I don't deviate from the sentence. I make sure I say the sentence exactly how I want it repeated, because repetition actually is what catches the culture so that people can now say it. I always say
So
that
good.
investigation actually is the best invitation.
Yes.
So if I can actually make something appealing enough so that someone actually investigates it for themselves, then they're actually a brand ambassador.
Yeah, the thing is, if you want somebody to carry the culture, you have to have a handle. Yep. Right? It's like a piece of luggage.
Yep.
Right? If the luggage is culture and you want them to carry that luggage, it has to have a handle. And so there's things that like are ingrained in our church that we don't even have on our website anymore, but people will still echo. Like there's a culture that we wanted to produce of kind of like this forward driving type community, right? Mobilize every member type church, right? And so we used to say we're aggressive but not arrogant, right? And that was just a handle.
Yep.
That it's alliterated. And it captures what we're trying to say. We're saying we're assertive. We're saying we're driving. We're saying we're aggressive. We're saying this is our nature, but not in a way that's arrogant and off-putting, right? But you just put that handle together. Now people can carry it.
Yeah.
They understand it's descriptive. You know what it is and you know what it's not.
Yeah, we just launched another one, because we are now 12 locations around the globe. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that every campus, and the handle that we put out there recently is we don't echo, we amplify.
Good.
So that it's not diminishing returns. Like, you drop, a pebble in a pond, it's going to have a ripple effect, but by the time it gets
Diluted.
out, it dilutes the effect. Well, but if we amplify it, it actually has
Good.
more effect. And so it's kind of like that nature that we're not just doing echoes of Mountain View, but it may originate in Mountain View, but now you get to put your flavor, your culture. You need to put it through the lens of Italian culture. You get to put it through the lens of German culture,
Beautiful.
UK culture, through Hawaiian culture, so that you take the core, but you amplify it with your culture. It's these handles that give people what we call permission. It's mission, but they get the permission to achieve the mission through their filter. So I'm adding their creativity. It's not just a list of like task soldiers, like, okay, I'll do it. It's actually add your creativity to it. Make this yours.
It's beautiful.
Wow, that's good.
I also think that what's underestimated is nonverbal cues.
Yes.
Right? And the actual actions that you substantiate your words with. And I've seen this, right? I've seen this because we have churches in places like Italy that literally don't speak the same language. But it happens every single time. Anybody from Mountain View location that knows Vive Church Mountain View and visits an Italian location, even though they don't know any word that they said,
Right.
they always say, but it felt like Vive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow,
Yeah.
Like, and so, but I know that's because, in the early days, we took like 5-6 trips a year, and I would see Pastor Adam in the way that he showed up to a room and the way he would just be tidying up wire. Like, there's a bunch of nonverbal things that people, even though they might not know what you're saying, but they see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that nonverbal cue is then replicated as well. I saw this stat the other day where it's actually really powerful. The way that you walk into a room, whether it's your home or maybe your place of business, the way that you walk into the room and you carry yourself for the first 2 minutes will largely dictate how the rest of the
Wow.
the home
Oh,
goes or
100%.
the rest of the business goes. And I was thinking about that. I was like, how do I walk in rooms?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Think about that now.
It's such a
Yeah.
it's such a big deal.
It's a big deal. I mean, I like traps for people. I like traps for team. So there's been times where I put some trash out on the sidewalk.
Wow.
And I just wanted to see, and I was offside. I wanted to see which team members walked past it, which team members grabbed it.
Wow. Are you just watching?
Yeah.
You just, oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm like a
Interesting.
little, I'm like a little stalker. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just watching because I want to see, it's not my job, or is this my house?
Interesting.
How long did it take?
Didn't take long, actually.
good.
Didn't
Oh,
take
great.
long at all.
Beautiful.
And the people that walk past it, I think they just might have seen it. I'm going to
Okay.
give them
Fair,
the
fair.
benefit of the doubt.
That's grace.
Yeah, but I'm watching.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's really cool. I think that one key part about that is you talk about actions, but it was at every level, and you yourself, if you're a leader, have to be the one to do
Have
that.
to.
You
Yes.
can't
Have
just
to.
be the one that says it, right?
You can't outsource it.
You cannot. And how did
There's
you
no
guys have to
way.
go through that, or did you guys always know it as leaders? Kind of that was the way it was going to be.
I don't think I knew any other way. I don't think I know any other way.
Sure.
I think it's every problem is my problem.
That's good.
I don't.
High
I
responsibility.
can't sit there and
Good.
say, "Oh, well, that's your problem."
Right.
Well, no,
Good.
it's my organization, and it's going to reflect on my reputation.
Good.
And so every problem is my problem. I want to bring people into the problem to help solve it, but I can't just dismiss it. And so I think I'm always looking at. And you can run the mistake of what your vision is on, right? So we probably spent the first 10 years of Vive super focused on the worship experience, but we probably didn't pay enough attention to the Sunday experience, which is everything that happens outside of
Right.
the auditorium.
Yes.
So what's happening in the auditorium at stage, from preaching to worship,
Excellent.
and that is like off the charts. But people finding a parking spot, and people getting information, and all those kinds of things that it's like, oh man, now we've got to focus more on that.
Right.
So it's like it's what's in your vision, it's what's in your optics, and so I think unless you inspect all areas of your organization, it's easy to give all your attention to the one that your eyes are on the most.
Yeah, that mentality though is so powerful. Every problem is my problem.
Yeah.
What I hear from that is high responsibility.
Yes.
Right. It's this. We say at Overflow, because I'm a big Kobe fan growing up, Mamba mentality. Right. This idea. So I started hearing something in our company that was really frustrating me, because there were some like really high performing team members that we had, but they would say things like, I think I need an admin. I'm not great at admin. And I'm like, you don't just get an admin.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of like, so I created this thing.
I think I need a masseuse.
Yeah.
I'm a little stiff.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you're not allowed to say that.
Right.
Because And so I was like, okay, I'm going to confront.
It's a bad idea to admit any fault to
Yeah,
your boss, any
definitely,
weakness. Be
yeah.
like, hey, I really suck at admin. Like, okay.
Find somebody else.
Yeah.
No, but I couldn't tell because they kind of wanted an assistant. And I'm just like,
Hang on, is this a Gen like Z kind of employee
Ooh,
or like
interesting.
well, they're all millennials pretty much. I
like
think
on
I
the
have one
bottom
Gen
end?
Z.
We talking?
I would hear it on all the spectrums, and so I was like really frustrated. I was addressing it in real time, but then I was like, you know what? I need to come up with an analogy for people so that when I correct them, it doesn't come off too harsh. Because I was really annoyed. I was like, guys, you can't just say. I heard it like 3 times in like the span of 2 days. I was like, what's going on? And so I created this kind of theme within our company: championship mentality. We're going to build a championship team. And so everything is under that banner now, so it doesn't come off as harsh. I come off as a coach, right? And so when I hear those type of things, and I've heard it because it might not be admin, but it rhymes like that, right? It's like something else. And what I tell people is like, no. It's kind of like when you're playing basketball and you're trying to be the world's greatest basketball player like Kobe was. He's not allowed to say, man, like, I just can't do a layup with my left hand. No, you work. Like
That's so good.
Okay, maybe you're not going to shoot with your left hand like your right hand, but you're going to have some level of proficiency on your left hand. And so I've started to infuse that, and people are getting excited now. So they don't say those like that crap anymore. Like, I'm not good at admin. It's kind of like
I love one of the Kobe sayings where he was like, I see guys turn up to training on time and leave at the end of time.
Yeah.
He's like, why am I passing them the ball?
exactly.
'Cause he's turning up an hour before training and staying an hour after.
Exactly.
So he's looking for the hustle guys like
Yes.
him, you know. And yeah, I think it's an excuse. I need an admin. That's so crazy. That is so crazy.
It's crazy, but I've heard it in church, right? Where pastors will say, man, I'm a phenomenal preacher. I'm just not good at finances. No, you're not allowed to say that. You're the lead pastor, CEO of the organization.
Yes.
You're not allowed to not be good at finances.
Exactly.
You need to have some level. I'm not saying you have to be a CFO.
Right.
But you have to have some level of proficiency. Like the same way I can do a layup with my left hand. It's not going to be as good as my right, but I can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sounds like a concoction for disaster.
Totally.
To say, I'm
And
not
it
good at
has been.
finances.
It
Let me
has
just leave
been.
it to somebody else. Man, I tell pastors that, the person you meet with the most is your CFO.
Right.
More than your worship pastor, more than your youth pastor, more than your connections team. Your CFO, we have 2 weekly meetings,
Good.
me and my CFO, so that we can actually go through everything, update everything, check everything, eyes on, transparency, all that kind of stuff. It's one of the most important areas, I think, of an organization and a church.
Well, that's one of your other mental models, right? Is you've said for a while, know enough to be dangerous.
Yes.
So it's this mentality that you don't just outsource stuff. No, you got to be involved.
You gotta be
As a
involved.
leader, every problem, I love that. Every problem's your problem.
Every problem.
At the end of the day,
Yep.
like you can't just keep kicking the can down the road. Like
exactly.
if it's not solved, then it's still something you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not saying it's wrong to have gaps. It's just
No.
this idea of you have to put the work in,
Yeah.
right? And you have to be able to overcome those gaps because that's kind of what gets filtered down. And if somebody sees, oh yeah, he's not willing to put the work in and he's just telling other people to do it, maybe that's a kind of like that, you talked about that bad apple or that bad
Yes.
seed that kind of just, filters down to the rest of your company. And so it's like, from a leadership level, you have to be the one that's like, okay, I'm going to go investigate this. I'm going to be the
Correct.
first one in. That's the problem. The problem is my problem.
Yeah, the problem's my problem because I think otherwise you can start to build an ivory tower where you actually don't have any
Totally.
bad reports coming to you,
Totally.
and then you create this really brittle organization where people can only tell you good things. And before you know it, the whole organization's frail, and the next storm that comes, it falls apart because, hang on, everyone was telling me it was great, but because you only heard great news.
Well, I love the illustration you gave in the sermon this past Sunday because it completely shifted my perspective. You gave this illustration of a sailing coat.
Yes, yes.
And basically, long story short, because you had the sailing coat and you were wearing it in California in 70-degree weather, you were actually looking for a storm.
Yeah, I was
Because
prepared.
you wanted to put the coat to use.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's a mark of great leadership is when you understand that, okay, hey, like I have some tools. I'm equipped. I'm called to this. you're not trying to run away from the problems. You're actually trying to run to the problems.
Right.
No. I'm a problem solver. Give me a problem right now. Like, where's the problem in the organization right now? I'm gonna solve it.
Yeah, and there's things about your leadership you'll only discover in problems. So, like I said this with the sailing jacket, there's like this clear patch on the back. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what it's for, but I'm sure in the storm I'll figure it out, because it'll reveal itself. It's the same thing with your faith. It's the same thing with your leadership, that in the right conditions, you'll actually learn things about yourself that you didn't have or didn't know without the conditions around you.
So good.
You know what's so interesting about that illustration as well? I think for somebody that's looking to follow a leader, the person you're going to follow is the one that looks most prepared. And the illustration of having that jacket, if I saw two people on a boat, the person I'm going to go talk to is the one that's wearing the sailing jacket.
With the sailing jacket, yeah.
And so I think as a leader, you have to be the one that, you look the most prepared. If you are prepared, you'll be the one that looks the most prepared.
The other thing is, if you go down to a sailing dock and the stormy weather is brewing, look at the ones with a smile on their face. The ones who are excited about some wind, they're not the ones who are out there just to have a little picnic on the deck. They're looking to get sailing. You know what I mean? And I think that's the leader, is like smiling when the storm's coming, because like, oh, now we're going to pick up some pace.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's going to cause some disruption, and we're going to have some waves to ride here.
I think that's a good word for 2024.
Yeah.
I mean, it's are you prepared? And if you're not, don't ask for help. Put the work in. Get prepared.
So good. Don't ask for an admin.
Don't ask for an admin. That's going to be the word for 2024. Don't ask for an admin.
I'm just not good at admin, It's just
not good at admin.
I hate writing emails. Really drag. It's like,
I need an admin writer
work
to write my emails. Yeah, it's actually called work.
But do you feel like generations are losing that?
Oh,
like
that's what I wanted to get to.
With like AI now, everything is automated. I don't have to do anything.
I don't know. Like I've seen a few TikTok-esque things. I think on Reels, where it's like these Gen Zers who are going off about like, hey, I'm just not prepared to work somewhere if they're not looking after this, and they're not doing this, and I'm like, it's just hilarious. I don't know if that's a true representation of Gen Z, or if they're just an easy target. But
I've had conversations where, like, phone calls of just like, yes, I just want to call because, I was just feeling a lot of pressure, and I just want to, look after my mental health and just taking care of previous trauma. Like every buzzword.
Yeah.
Right. Previous trauma. Right. This is your second job.
Oh my goodness.
But how do you even respond to that? I mean, like the way the world is right now, if they mention any of those trigger words, you can't even say anything back. You're like, okay, yeah, mental health tag.
I think you can't. Well,
really?
I feel.
I mean, I don't know. It's so woke. It's so scary to get canceled now.
Well, what I feel like is, like
for some of us, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't care about getting canceled.
I feel like the route that I've seen effective. I'm not an expert, but the route that I've seen effective is, I think in moments of frustration we can just be dismissive of people. But what I've learned is actually just the art of reflecting back what they're saying to them and helping them realize, okay, so what I hear you saying is, and just reflecting it back. And then you can see kind of this journey. Maybe it's slow, maybe they get it fast, but there is this journey where they're actually, for the first time, it seems like processing out how ridiculous it sounds, and not accusing, but just clarifying and allowing them to come to those conclusions. I mean, that's part of like leadership, right? Is like, how good of a question asker are you? If everything that you're doing is just dictating, they're not going to have any ownership, right? But if you're helping lead them through conversation and questions, and sometimes you don't have the luxury of that because you got to get stuff done, right? So I get it, but
but even taking that initial step, even maybe for yourself, will allow you to take a second to process it. And I say this, even in marriage, maybe like.
Oh yeah, talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like like first year married and stuff. I'm doing a great job, guys.
Shilps is a trooper.
Hey, praise her, honestly. But no, I think it is really important to be able to ask the right questions and to bring that out of them as like a leader, right?
Yeah.
Look, I think, to that generation that's emerging, and maybe we're going too hard on the Gen Z. Maybe let's just poke holes at millennials for a moment.
Yeah, let's do it.
The conversation, maybe as an employer, or maybe you're not in the church and you're out in the workforce, and there are triggers like mental health and past trauma and all that kind of stuff. But maybe you are to a degree stuck with saying, like, freaking out. But you got to make a mental catalog of what's the fragility of this person.
Yes.
And your job as an employer is not to support necessarily support them through their mental health journey? Are they getting the job done?
Correct.
And sometimes actually by firing somebody is actually one of the best things for
Oh,
them to take
wake-up call.
stock and go,
So good.
maybe I can't act so fragile. Maybe
So
maybe I need to
good.
toughen up. And maybe they've just been pandered to their whole life. And so now they're perpetuating the system that's all they know. Rather than the generation before that probably just figured it out. Like if I show weakness, I'm going to be the first on the chopping block. So maybe I've got to get strong. Maybe I've got to get in the gym. Maybe I've got to get there. Like if I kept getting beat up at school, I realized after a while I better go and lift some weights. You know what I mean? I got to be able to muscle up here. I think it's the same in the world, and I'll probably get cancelled for that. But
No,
think that's
I
great.
just think that there is this. We have to process everything out loud with each other.
Right.
It's like, no, I think you're meant to process that with God or on your own.
Yeah.
Like maybe you're not a faith person, but like just. I think you're meant to process that before you take that in public. You know what I mean? Like what happened with? I think there was like we overdid the vulnerability thing.
Is that social media?
we overdid it.
Is that social media? Because now everything you
Yes.
do has to get posted.
No, yes, I think it's
It's-
social
Oh, it's
media.
definitely partly that for sure.
It's like every thought you have posted.
I think about this
It's gotta
with
be.
girls. Like there used to be a day and age where girls would do their makeup at home, not on social media.
Right.
Where now it's like they're doing the
Right.
makeover online. It's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for showing me what you look like without makeup. Fantastic. Good to know. But there used to be a level of, secrecy. Like, hey, let
Don't
me
get
put my
canceled for the previous thing, but you'll get canceled for that one.
I've got 3 daughters. We have conversations about this all the time. Like, you don't need to show everything, guys.
You don't need
know?
to show everything.
Yeah.
You don't need to have to process everything. This is the crazy thing too, especially with your boss.
Yeah,
What are we
where are the
talking
boundaries?
about? Like,
Yeah.
Have some
I
decorum.
don't understand where it's kind of like when I was coming up in my career, it was definitely like this idea that, hey, look, I'm here to serve the company. I'm here to serve. You know what I mean? Like, and I want to bring my best self. And all of a sudden, in some context, it feels like it's reversed.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and I'm all for servant leadership. I'm not saying like, oh, it's all like you serve your boss, but it's just kind of like we've lost some of that honor, that respect for the craft, for the job, for the company. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree. There's something about this idea of independence that kind of like perverted that whole concept of there is a hierarchy. There is some level of respect that needs to be there.
100%.
But people are like, oh, I'm independent, so I can do whatever is the best for me. It's a
Good
me
luck.
thing. And it's just kind of, it's all through the culture now. And I think I kind of like,
Look, I'm going to try and stay cool right now because you guys are getting me heated.
I feel like it's about to come out. You can finish this pot on fire. I mean, like,
And so that was the last number 19 was the
couldn't get to
last
20.
We're starting a new podcast in 2024.
Anything else? Anything you guys want to reflect on before we close it out for today?
Can we quickly just get a lay of the land on the political climate? Do you still like Vivek? Are you going cold on Vivek? Are you back on Trump? Where are you at?
So I watched the last debate, and this is coming from somebody that like really likes Vivek. I thought he was, and he's gotten this criticism before, but this is the first time I was like, oh yeah, you are obnoxious. Like he was just going for personal insults on Nikki Haley. He was like literally calling like Chris Christie's fat and stuff like that. You know, regardless if it's true or not.
Yeah.
Like you don't do like that's just
I feel like you
again.
got caught up in the drama, like you were talking
Yeah,
about, like
you
the
just
game.
like there is a decorum to things like we were talking about. Like there is some level of like just dignity and respect.
like
I feel
attacking
like
her intelligence, like
you know what I mean. Like it's just like okay, he's starting to play those games,
Yeah.
and I know that maybe those games have worked in the past for certain candidates and stuff. But that's personally been a little bit off-putting for me. I still agree with a lot of his main points and things like that. Here's where I'm at with it. I just think that at this point we're getting closer and closer to the nominee. I don't think anybody's going to catch Trump. He's just so far in the lead, and so.
Did you say unfortunately?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Did he say that? Wow. Tell us what you really think.
it's it's just like the person, right? It's just the person. I don't
So
mind.
you
a
just
lot
got caught up in the
I
drama.
got caught up in the drama. You're right. We talked about it.
See, I take a different position with Vivek.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very intentional.
He wants
I
to be
think-
VP, right?
Maybe.
Oh, definitely. He won't say a bad thing about Trump.
No, he won't. Because I think it's smart. But I think you need to be in headlines right now. You need to control the narrative.
And he's doing that.
And he's trying to do things that are aggressive.
Sure.
Because otherwise he's just a pushover.
Totally.
Young, maybe in a few years, bro.
That's true.
But now I think
That's true.
his team
He's
are
trying to
very
break that
smart. They're
perception,
like,
yeah.
go toe to toe.
He has to,
push
yeah.
back.
That's a good point.
That's what Trump did, and that's what literally refreshed
That's-
people. Like, hey, this
yeah.
guy's ready to stand up toe to toe, and everyone else does look weak to me. I looked. I was bullish on DeSantis in the early
I
days, but he's
know.
just muted and soft, and
know.
it's like, man, I kind
Such
of
a
want
bummer.
someone who's got some grit. I want someone who's going to stand up to somebody else and say, hey, you're corrupt. You suck. You did
true.
this.
Yeah.
You actually used your political position and
For gain,
power
yeah.
to gain yourself. And, I'd kind of
Calling him out.
I want someone to stand up toe to toe in the schoolyard and go, "Hey, I'm calling you out." So for me, that one major points for Vivek, and
Is that your number one candidate right now? you?
I'm still. I'm probably circulating a couple of different scenarios.
Yeah.
I got to be careful with who I let people know I
That's true.
support.
Yeah, you can't say that.
I don't
Yeah,
want.
no.
I don't want to do that and
that's
persuade people. But
Yeah.
I feel like I like someone who I don't get caught up in the drama of what's being said. I don't get caught up in the drama of a mean tweet. I don't even get caught up in the drama of a fat call. Okay, because for me, what I'm looking forward to is what is fundamentally the policies. Now I think candidates need to play the game. They need to get in headlines. They need to be in the conversation like we are right now, right?
True.
They need to be in podcast conversations. Did you hear he said that? He left his mic on the other day. Did you see that? He's having a conversation. You've got Alex Jones. You've got Elon Musk, Vivek, all the big hitters on that X call. And Vivek went to the bathroom and he left his mic on, and you can hear him going to the toilet. and someone's like, "Hey, someone's left their mic on. I think that's you, Vivek." He goes, "Oh, sorry." I'm thinking, I think he did it on purpose
100%.
because it didn't sound like.
Viral moment.
It didn't sound like toilet. It sounded like something else. But yep, I feel better now, guys. And I'm like, he's looking for viral moments.
He's really resonating with a younger
He's
audience.
smart.
Yes.
He's really
He's smart.
crushing that area.
Bro, he's smart.
Well, he had like 20,000 followers on Instagram.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
now almost got 1 million.
Oh, yeah.
So he's getting in the populace. And a big part of the voting narrative is when it comes to voting, do I recognize a name?
For
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
It's like, oh, yeah, he did
Yeah.
that thing. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think that he's playing that game because policies alone doesn't do it. It's got to be
True.
policy and personality. We're in the United States of America.
Yeah.
If policies alone did it, there'd
Yeah.
be different
We invented
outcomes.
Hollywood, baby.
Exactly.
Wait, do you
that's
guys
true.
have like a climate on like the younger generation and their interest in voting? For me, it seems like there is not a lot of interest in like the political scene and all that. There's like an almost like untapped market of like voters out there.
Oh, for
That I feel
sure.
like he, is kind of trying to reach out to and get into. But I don't know if you guys have like just talking.
I don't
to
even
people
think
and stuff.
millennials do a great job of
Oh, yeah.
voting. You
No,
know what I
definitely
mean?
not,
I
yeah.
think we need to. I'm like really been getting a lot more interested, not in just national politics, but even like local politics. I've been doing a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, man, there's all these tools. We pay all these taxes. We should care. You know what I mean? Like we
Not
should
just complain, but we should care.
What's been annoying me is when I actually, to your garbage thing, actually, I don't know, like God, the Holy Spirit, whatever, has just been highlighting to me just trash everywhere. I just see trash everywhere
Yeah.
now. And I'm just like, it's almost to the point I'm like, no, I really want to do something about this. This is ridiculous. Like,
It is.
we really need, like, we pay all these taxes. Like, I know what my property tax is, right? We have
Yes.
these houses in the Bay Area. And just like, no, like we need to, like, especially millennials that are starting to get more mature. They're in the 30s, they're heading into the 40s, all that type of stuff. We have more influence, resources. We should have a voice.
So
right?
that's why you don't generally get a lot of young people interested in politics, is because they don't pay taxes.
Yes.
To the degree, maybe they pay some income tax,
Yes,
but when you're paying
true,
property taxes,
true.
and that is like an astronomical amount of
Astronomical.
money every year, you're like, where is this going? And who am I paying salary for? And you start to actually have a mortgage,
Yes,
and
yes,
interest
yes.
rates are
That's such a good
affected, and
point.
all the policies actually now affect you directly. So that's when you actually get invested. Up until then, you're just pretty much interested in climate change and some nuanced thing that you go out there, because you're young and no responsibility, you'll sit on a freeway and you'll block something, stop oil or whatever garbage that you're on about, because you actually aren't in reality yet. You're in a fictitious world like this actually matters. And the grand scheme of things, when you get dependents and people, who depend on you, kids
Yeah.
and their education and raising the next generation, putting a roof over their head and putting food in their stomachs, what actually becomes more important than, hey, let's stop oil, is actually, hey, how is our taxes being used to better the environment that we're in?
Yeah.
So good.
I think local government's important because we actually have a chance to affect it.
Oh,
Like,
we can
it's-
absolutely influence.
like-
it.
Yes.
100%.
like I don't know, you should go sit in, like, I've been told this, I haven't done it myself and I want to, just those meetings where you can actually go and voice your opinion.
Yeah, I've been to
like
one.
I feel like that's the first step in
Yeah.
being interested in politics. And so like
Absolutely.
I've been told this by people that kind of work in the like local government, like that's the first step.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're working on it here in Vive. We're putting pretty much a program together for anybody who is interested in politics as a
Cool.
calling.
That's awesome.
We're putting pathways for really educating them, equipping them with mentors, giving
brilliant.
them inroads into school boards, local boards, just really easy entry things that are going to get you connections and network in that sphere, and so give you a really clear pathway on how to build really kingdom principle and policy, because we feel the future is about having kingdom policymakers in positions of power.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
It's
that's
beautiful.
incredible. Well, it's been a great year for the High Pod. First
year.
year. Excited for what 2024.
You've been a great addition, Arun.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
you guys
this has
having me
been
on.
fun,
Honestly,
dude.
it's just been,
You've been doing a great job.
It's been great to be with you guys.
You're
so.
popular with the people.
Oh,
Yeah, the people
fantastic.
love you.
They
And
do.
just a reminder, March 6th.
Ooh,
March
March
6th.
Yes.
The Hype Network is coming together at FlowCon. We were just planning it, Pastor Adam and I, the other day. We're going to have a big hype session.
It's going to be exciting.
With some really, really special guests. People are going to be flying in from all over the nation. The Hype Network's going to show up in full force.
Yeah, so
and,
tell them who it's for. Like who
yeah,
listening
yeah, yeah,
should
yeah.
be interested in
yeah,
this.
Yeah, yeah, So this is really a conference at the intersection of faith, innovation, and technology, right? And so that's essentially why we started the Hype Network, is because of our regional position, one of our main locations being in Mountain View, which would be the heart of the Silicon Valley, right? Palo Alto, Mountain View, the heart of the Silicon Valley. We naturally attract to our church entrepreneurs, VCs, innovators, makers, people in crypto, bullish on Ethereum, all these type of things, emerging technologies, people that are either building those technologies, even if you're not though, and you're interested in it. That was
Yeah.
one of the things at one of our last events at the Hype House that I was floored by, is there probably half of the people are not building it yet. They were just kind of like,
Here to
outside
learn.
looking in, here to learn. And so if you are building it or you're just here to learn, come.
Yeah.
Come. And so you'll see some landing pages in the next couple weeks, but just save the date. March 6th. It's going to be during the day. March 6th. It's going to be amazing.
Yep.
Excited. All right, guys. Well, that's the last one.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Let's
New
do
Year.
it.
Cheers.